Made by Lucy, and I'm coming on here today to do some sewing with you guys, and I'm going to be using one of these funky little things called a jelly roll. So if you follow me on my social sewing community group on Facebook at the moment, you'll see that every week I do a sewing A to Z, and basically I will share something with you, a technique, a notion or a project that relates to that letter of the alphabet. And this week was J, so J for jelly rolls. And that's what I'm going to be doing with you today. So just giving you some inspiration on what you can make using your jelly roll. What is a jelly roll, first of all? Well, a jelly roll is basically a roll of fabrics that's been cut from a length of fabric. So depending on how wide your fabric is will be how long your jelly rolls are. And they vary in width, normally about 2 to 2.5 inches. This particular roll is 2.5 inches wide. And then if I unravel it, you'll see that the length of the width of the fabric was a full width, about 155 centimetres, or just under, actually 135 centimetres wide. So that is one strip from my jelly roll. And this gorgeous fabric I found, it's super funky. It comes in a whole range of different colours, really gorgeous, like a rainbow of colours, and it's just basically got loads of script on it. And I think they're poems, and it's all just written together. I love it, and I thought it's really inspirational. Some of the quotes on there are gorgeous. It's got on here, we're dreaming of more than life, the sun is love about them, strawberries and apples, where my heart is love lives, love lives, we are all friends, lucky paper planes, spin around and around. It's just all really random but really gorgeous, cute little quotes and poetry, which I really love, and I thought that'd be really inspirational to use on a gorgeous make. So I bought this jelly roll just while I was searching online. In fact, it was from a lady, let me just get it for you. It was from createincolour.co.uk. I'll put her link in the comments. Got no association, I just came across her online and really loved this particular fabric, so purchased. They come super quick, and I'm loving them. And I'm going to make these into, so my jelly roll I'm going to make into a funky little cover for this little mini notebook. Comments if you've made stuff before, let us know what you've made with jelly rolls. Typically they're used for things like quilting, patchworking, that type of thing, but you can make a whole range of things. What I'm going to do is simply join my jelly rolls together along the long length. So get all my colours, decide which ones I want to go together, put them right sides facing, and then sew down the long length of my jelly roll until they're all joined up like a big rainbow stripy colours, and that will be then my larger fabric that I can use for my project. So I want to put all my jelly rolls together to make a large piece of fabric. So you can do this in kind of a pattern if you want to. I'm just pasting them all together in strips. I quite like this stripy effect, the like rainbow effect. So you basically just want to add them all together and gradually build up. I'm using my favourite colours from my jelly rolls. I'm picking out the ones I like the most to put together to make my book cover. So let me add another, let me go for the lovely purple. And if you've got a pattern that needs to be held, stay the right way up. So my writing, I want it all to be the right way up. Just make sure you consider that when you're joining the pieces together. So I'm just laying it at the bottom here, then flipping it over so right sides are facing. So all my writing will be up the right way. And I'm simply just doing a straight stitch all the way down those edges, joining those strips together. I'm back stitching at the start and at the end just to make sure it doesn't unpick. It's already looking rather gorgeous, all these lovely colours. There we go, and you just want to keep joining them together so you've got enough fabric. So I'm going to do one more strip on mine. I don't need an awful lot because the book's quite small, so I don't need to go wild and join too many together. And then I've got some left over then to use for other projects, which will be really nice. So let me just move that out of the way. So there we go. How awesome is that looking? So I'm going to put a white one on there, I think. What I also done with my jelly roll strips is I cut them in half in the middle, so they're now much shorter, because I didn't need to have those big massive long strips all sewn together. You know, it would have been a waste at this moment in time, because in the future when I make another project with them, I might want to do a different design. I might not want it to just be stripy. I might want to go for like a slightly quilted design, make a block or something with the fabric with a picture on. So I'm going to save those ones for another project at another time. So let's just put a white one on the bottom as well, just to break up the colours a little bit. So literally you could pop some pins or clips along here to help you keep your fabrics together. I'm just going to hold it in place and make sure as I sew it stays where I want it to be. And then what you also want to do once you've done that, once you've got all your strips together, as many as you want, you're going to want to then iron open your seams on the reverse to make them nice and flat, so your fabric is nice and flat. So I'm just going to go over to the ironing board and do that now. Okay, so now let's get started with making the book cover. So I want to decide where I want my fabrics to lie on my book, because my little book here is about 3 widths of a jelly roll slither, as such I'm going to call them. So I think I'm going to move it down so I get a little bit of the white and a little bit of the green on the top here. So I've got as many colours as I can in my little book cover. I quite like to have a bit of the white in there. So I'm going to sort of lay my book where I think I would like it to lie on my fabric. So it's not right to the bottom here. It's got a good 3 centimetres to the bottom there, so hopefully that's fairly even in the middle of my fabrics. And then my little book is 16 centimetres tall, the height of it, so I'm going to give a ½ centimetre either end allowance. So I'm just going to put a mark there, ½ centimetre above and ½ centimetre below, and the same on the other side, like so. And I'm then going to sew a seam allowance top and bottom, because I'm not going to line my little book cover, so I just want to hem the top and the bottom so you don't see any raw edges. So what I'm going to do is go back to the ironing board, follow those little marks I've gone, and fold this over along the top here, following those little marks that I've put on there. Give that a good iron, and then chop some of this off. So unfortunately my pink's going to have to come off, and just fold over a little double seam allowance all the way along the top and all the way along the bottom. So I'm just going to go and do that now, and I'll come back and show you. Okay, so I've been to my ironing board. I folded over on the little marks that I had made, on the front of my cover, the size of my book, ½ centimetre top and bottom bigger. And then I folded that over and ironed, and then I trimmed off some of the excess before then folding down to make a double hem here along the top and the bottom. And I've just ironed that along, and I've put some clips along there just to hold it in place. So as you can see, it's then got a little hem top and bottom of the inside of my little book cover case. And I basically want to do that because I don't want any raw edges showing once my case is finished, even if that's on the inside. So all I'm going to do now is sew along that opening and the bottom of that hem. So I'm just going to sew along that edge of that hem there, all the way along top and bottom to hold it down in place. And what I'm also going to do is I'm going to find the centre of my fabric, and I'm just going to add a little bit of ribbon here as well. I'm going to sew that into the seam and use that as a little ribbon bookmark when it's finished. I've got some really cute little tape measure ribbon here, which I'm going to use for this to keep it nice and sewing themed. So I'm just going to have a length of that for my little bookmark, sort of just a bit longer than my actual book. And then trim that off. A little bit's going to be in the seam. Let's have a look. I'm going to do down to there. There we go. So I'm now going to position that in the middle of my fabric. So let me just fold this in half. Find that middle spot. Just going to pop a pin in there so I know where it is. Open it back up, and that's where I'm going to put my little ribbon. So making sure again my ribbon is the right way up. I'm just going to fold it over so that I see the reverse on the inside of my case here, and then that will come over and make my bookmark. Okay, so just to show you what I've done there, I found the middle of my case cover, and then I've pinned my ribbon in that middle bit at the top, and that's the reverse that you can see there. In fact, that's the bottom, so I'm going to change that to the top now. Good job I showed you. There we go. And just pin that in place. That's better. So now I'm just going to sew across the top and the bottom. And again, just using a straight stitch here. You could use a decorative stitch on this bit if you wanted to. And back stitching when we start and finish. Just want to be careful not to sew that ribbon underneath, so just keep that out the way. There we go. So I've now hemmed the top and bottom of my cover, and I've got my little bookmark there ready to go in the middle, the centre of my book. So that's the next step done. And now I need to decide how wide I want my little cover. So I want it to obviously go into the inside and back pages. So I want it to be able to slide in. So I want to make like a little pocket for that to happen. But I obviously don't want it going right up to the middle of the book. So I'm going to have to take that down a little bit as well. So I kind of want it to be about, say, there. So about just over halfway down my book, for instance. Just making sure it's still wider than the actual book itself. So I'm thinking about there. I want to keep my little bookmark somewhere kind of central. And then the same with the other side. So I want to bring that in roughly the same. So I think I'm going to trim these edges off slightly. So if I want to bring this in about, let me just measure this. That's about 8 centimetres in, and then I want to give myself a couple of centimetres seam allowance. So if I measure 10 centimetres out from this outside edge of my book, I'm just going to mark that with my tailor's chalk. And I'm going to measure the same the other side. So 10 centimetres out from the edge of my book. And you want to give yourself plenty of room. You want it to be just over halfway, because when you close your book, that's going to move your fabric in tighter. So you want to be able to give it a bit of movement for when you actually close your book up. So I'm just going to trim that off, and then I'm going to iron in a hem either side as well to get rid of those raw edges, and I'll be back. Okay, so I've just hemmed, well, ironed down those two end pieces and popped some clips in, and I'm just going to stitch down those two side seams now, those side hems, just to hold them in place. Again with a straight stitch, and I'm back stitching when I start and finish. And same the other side. There we go. I'm just going to trim off all my threads as I go as well. Keep my work nice and tidy. So I now have a length of fabric made from my jelly roll strips. I've hemmed the top, I've hemmed the bottom. I've measured my book and hemmed either side, so I know it's going to be able to come in over my front and back covers to make my little slide bits for my fabric cover to slide onto my book. Get my book the right way up. I'm going to centre it back up with that centre position, and now I want to measure how far in I want those flaps to come in. So basically holding my book in the centre, holding my book up, and then I'm just folding in the left hand side in this case, or the right to you, and I'm just going to pop a pin top and bottom there to hold that in place. And that's where I'm going to then sew. Just going to take my book out now. Whoop. There we go, so that's one side. I'm going to do the other side in a minute. So I'm basically now going to sew down the top here and down the bottom to close those two openings up, and that will give me my little envelope to slide one of my sides of my book cover into. I want to sew quite close to that edge, so I've got plenty of room to slide my book into. So I don't want to be using a massive seam allowance on this. I want to have it quite close to the edge. Make sure on this bit you're catching the top and the bottom of the fabric as well as you sew along. And I just went forward and back at the end to finish it off, just where it's going to get a little bit of wear and tear there. Just to make it a bit stronger. So that's one. There we are, that's one side done. So now I'm just going to remeasure. So I'm going to pop that side in. Lovely, it slides in there just right. I've got a little bit of room either side. I have sewn quite close to the edge of the fabrics, top and bottom. And the benefit of that also is then you haven't got a big sort of flappy bit here. You want it to look quite neat on those edges. And now I'm going to do the other side. So I'm just going to now fold my book up this way with my cover on in place, and I'm going to fold across my other side, make sure it closes okay, and then I'm going to do the same again and sew those two sides down again. So I'm just going to put some pins in there, hold that in place, and same for the other side. And then to get my book out, I'm just going to gently pull it out and pop a pin in this other side. And I'm going to do the same again. I'm going to sew along those two open edges. There you go. So now I've got my two little side sections, my little envelope parts. I've got my little bookmark hanging down the middle, and fingers crossed my little book should be able to fold into there quite easily. So I'm just going to slide in one side, and then you kind of have to bend the other side back to get it in. So this is when it's quite nice to have a ring binded book. It's a bit easier to get it into the cover. Ooh. Well, slide that down, and there we have it. And then my little piece of ribbon is my little bookmark that will go through the middle. And there you have it, my easy little jelly roll book cover. Perfect to jazz up a plain and boring old book you've had for a while, or perfect to give you some inspiration as well. So if you can find a funky jelly roll with some great patterns and designs on, this will inspire you and motivate you to make some notes and get creative. So I hope you've enjoyed that little tutorial. Have a go and let me know in the comments if you do, and I'd love to see your pictures. Anyway, that's it for now, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for joining me on my channel. Bye.